Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Ask the Advisor Live, getting ready for fall 2021. Really, thank you to everyone who joined us at the Tribune Publishing Virtual College Fair, either visiting our booth, sitting in on our seminar, or even asking questions during our content takeover. We had so many fantastic questions come in. And, in all honesty, it almost felt like we ran out of time because people had great questions the entire time. So I wanted to give an opportunity to others to be able to ask questions if we weren't able to get to them. And then also here through our Edvisor's Facebook and Edvisor's YouTube, if there's any outstanding questions that we aren't able to get to or I'm unable to answer right on the spot, hopefully we don't get into those. But if we do hit any that I'm not able to answer right on the spot, we're able to provide those answers right in the chat right after the session is over. So a little bit about me. Hello again, as more people are joining. My name's Elaine Rubin. I am the Director of I am the Director of Corporate Communications at Edvisors. I've been helping people plan and pay for college for more than 10 years, and I had to help myself even before that figure out a way to plan and pay for college. I used very different methods to help me through those college costs from scholarships, savings, student loans, private student loans, as well as some work study and working on my own there. So I've seen a lot of applications. I've had to fill them out myself. So this session is really for everyone joining us today. If you have any questions, feel free to type them right in the chat. It doesn't matter which platform you're watching from. I can see your questions coming in, and feel free to step in with questions as we go through. I'm keeping an eye on it. So if you see my eyes going a little crazy, it's just making sure that I'm not missing any questions that you're sending through. So it's fall. We're getting ready for fall 2021. It's a few months away. It's not quite here yet, but you're probably starting to get those college decisions, and now you're trying to make a decision of where you should go to school. And there's a few factors that go into making that decision, as well as one of the biggest factors being financials, paying for college, figuring out how you're going to afford your college tuition. So that's what this session is really about. So feel free, if you have any questions from your financial aid award letters or any questions about what types of financial aid you really have or kind of the impacts of that, feel free to put that right in the chat and we'll get to it. Another way you can submit questions, I know not everybody is the most comfortable with submitting questions right in public, is to go to our website, edvisors.com. If you scroll down to the bottom there, you'll actually have the ability to ask a question through Ask the Edvisor, and we will get back to you as soon as possible with any answers to your questions. Like I said, from the Tribune College Fair, we had so many great questions coming in of people just trying to understand the true cost of college, questions with the FAFSA, completing the FAFSA, any next steps they could be stuck on, as well as, waiting for those financial aid award letters to come in and really translating what they mean. So there's a lot of things that are going on, a lot of household conversations, I'm sure, being had right now. So feel free to get those questions in. I'm going to start by, just going over some tips, going over a little bit about some things to keep in mind, especially this time of year. It's April. And like I said before, some of those college decisions have been made. Some schools have already sent their decisions to you. Now it's up to you to pick which school makes the most sense for you. Financials, like I said, is a major consideration. There could be that dream school that you always wanted to go to, and congratulations if you got in, but now it's time to look at the financial part and have some of those courageous conversations with, yourself, if it's all on you to come up with a way to pay for college, or with family members. If your parents are helping, grandparents, aunts, uncles, if anyone's helping, now it's time to have the conversation and really understand what expectations you can have from others helping you, and really establish that budget to help you pay for school. So financial aid, make sure when you're reading that financial aid award letter that you have the financial aid you expected to see on there. So if you completed the FAFSA, even if you didn't qualify for any need-based aid like a Pell Grant or anything like that, You should see student loans on there, federal student loans. There's usually an option for a direct subsidized or direct unsubsidized student loan if you're an undergraduate student. And if you're a graduate student, you might see something like a direct unsubsidized loan or direct plus loan. So just important ways to make sure that you know your federal aid has been processed and they have awarded you some of that financial aid. You want to make sure, like we always say, when you go through that financial aid award letter, especially if you're still making a decision of where you want to go, you really want to understand what is on that financial aid award letter. If you've been accepted to more than one school and now you have to make a decision of where to go, look at all the factors that are presented to you, you want to identify for each school what type of aid they've given you as far as scholarships or grants, what type of aid they've offered you in the form of a loan, as well as what type of financial aid could be something that's considered an earned aid, so something like a work study. And you want to classify those and get an idea of where you are. Something else you want to make sure you know is your cost of attendance. So on your financial aid award letter, you might see the cost of attendance there. Sometimes it's not there. And if it's not there, it's time for you to do a little bit more research and figuring out what your school determined cost of attendance is. What you might see it as is something like your student budget, which could also be on your portal if you log into your school's portal. And it might give you like a total budget on there that is essentially the same thing. Just double check. It'll tell you the components that it's considering. Everything from tuition and fees, room and board, and other things like different types of costs, like costs for books, transportation, and that sort of thing. Those tend to be estimates. And when we look at cost of attendance or a student budget, there is an important thing you want to know. So you have the direct costs, right? So you have what you owe the school, tuition and the fees that you owe them directly. If you're living on campus, you'll probably see the fees for living on campus and what you owe the school. When you see other things that you're not paying directly to the school, even books, transportation, and other things that are included in that student budget, those are estimates. Your school usually comes up with the budget by determining estimates for you based on your program. Because they're estimates, there could be a little bit of wiggle room on how you do that and how you come up with the money and the funds that you need for that. What do I mean by that? You know, if you know your courses for the upcoming term and you know that you have to buy books for the upcoming term, you probably have more than one option of where you can get your books. Make sure to double check that syllabus to make sure it's not just some sort of course pack that's very unique, but if it's an actual textbook, you can look at ways to rent it online as opposed to buying it. You could look at ways to buy maybe a used version of that textbook and that sort of thing. See, when it comes to estimates, it's not going to be the exact cost. It could be a little bit less than that. It could be a little bit more than that, depending on your major or the different classes that you're taking. So very important things to identify there. Because as you're going through that financial aid award letter, you're going through your cost of attendance, you really want to know and figure out how much you're going to need for that upcoming year and how much you're going to have to pay out of pocket as well as borrow in student loans. Because as we know, the goal here is, to reduce the amount that you really need to borrow to complete your program. And when you're still comparing different schools, then you have an opportunity now to make some decisions on what's more affordable, what makes the most financial sense for you. Here we talk a lot about internally about, the whole college of your dreams versus college of your means type of concepts, because you could be getting into that school that you really wanted to go to, and that's fantastic. But if the financial aid and the funds aren't there, you might have to make some other decisions or come up with some ways that you can help pay for that. Another important point about your financial aid award letter, that's for 1 year. That's a very, common mistake, is to think that this is how much it costs for your program. Those financial aid award letters tend to be for 1 academic year of your program. So if you come up with the math and you figure out, between the amount of scholarships and grants you have, the amount you're able to pay out of pocket, and then you're looking at the amount that you might need to borrow in loans. Keep in mind, if you're borrowing for that first year, you might have to borrow for each year that comes up for your program after that fact. So that's when things like student loan debt can start to increase rather quickly. It may seem like a small amount now, borrowing $5,000, $10,000 at a time. But if you go for 2 years, that $5,000, $10,000 can easily become $10,000, $20,000 and so forth. And keep in mind also, since you're only looking at 1 year at a time, that's all based on how much you owe the school this year, based on the award that you received this year. If you're getting a lot of scholarships from your school to help you pay for college, that's fantastic. But you do want to make sure that you understand that what the terms and conditions of those scholarships are. Is it a first-year scholarship? Is it something you'd have to retain eligibility for by keeping a certain GPA? Is it a certain thing with your actual program? What happens if you transfer or you change your major later? Could something happen to that money for other years that are down the road? So those are just some things you want to flag as you go through your financial aid award letter. I know I've been going on a little bit about some of the starting tips, and I noticed some people are joining us throughout this. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them right in the chat. Like I said, I'm keeping an eye on it. That's why you probably see my eyes go a little bit crazy, just so I'm keeping an eye on the chat as it goes through. We're coming to you from both our Facebook account as well as our YouTube account. So either platform, feel free to put that through. And then, like I said before, if you're someone who's not really the most comfortable with asking questions in a public forum, that's completely fine. Like I said, we do have the option, if you go to our website, edvisors.com, to submit a question that way at Ask the Edvisor. I can definitely put links for that below. So as we're kind of talking about those financial aid award letters and other things going on, this session would not be beneficial if we didn't touch on what's been happening, current times, the past year we've had, what we're still dealing with here, the effects of the COVID-19 global pandemic, which does have an impact on your choice to go to college, paying for college. The impact we know is everywhere. This is another place where the impact could also still be. The reason for that, we know a lot of people financially may have not been able to make as much money as they are used to making. There could have been a layoff situation in your family, something that affected your financial ability and maybe some of your plans to help you pay for college. And we know when we complete the FAFSA, you're not looking at your financial information from even the past year, it's from 2 years ago. And in all honesty, the world was a different place 2 years ago. Lives were significantly different 2 years ago. So incomes could have changed, household income could have changed dramatically, but that's not being reflected in your FAFSA form. Your FAFSA form, but that's not being reflected in your financial aid award letter from your FAFSA information, and maybe even some of your CSS profile information if your school requires that. What you want to do if you're somebody who is in that situation is you want to make time with financial aid. You want to ask them if you can file what's known as a financial aid appeal, or if there's anything that you can submit so that they can look at your circumstances today versus what was happening a few years ago. So that's something you can do. And you know what? In all honesty, it might seem early. It might seem like your term is not starting till August or September. So why do it all now in April? Well, if your school has someone that you can talk to now, if you have a financial aid office you can call or email or have a discussion through your portal online, now is the time to do that. It might seem like it's a little premature, but if you wait, the closer you get to that start of your term, the more other people might also have that same concern or question, and then it might be a little bit harder to get a hold of anyone from financial aid. So if you can start that process a little bit earlier, it'll help you get at least the forms together, the information together that you need, and then also have that conversation with financial aid to discuss your situation. If they say, hey, we're kind of dealing with the end of our last year, our last term, could you have the conversation later? You can always say, I'll definitely put on my calendar. Can we book an appointment now just so we can have that conversation. My appointment's all set. And also, could you send me the forms? Because, sometimes it's just taking the time of getting everything you need, writing the letters. We have some great examples on edvisors.com on how to write a financial aid appeal letter. So if you need to do some of that, you can get started earlier. Some schools will have their own form that you can find right on their website. So that's something else that you can do, is get that form together and look to see if there's anything they recommend that you get together to bring to them. Some other things you can do right now, as you're kind of looking at your financial aid award letter, you're making decisions of where you're going, you might flag that you need to come up with some more money to pay for college. This is not an uncommon situation to be in. If you're looking for the route of, trying to pay with scholarships to reduce the amount you need to borrow, you still have time to look for scholarships and apply. Keep a close eye on how, the opening date of applications for different private scholarships out there, as well as the closing date. The closing date may be important because if it's getting a little too close to that September deadline or when you start classes, then you might run into trouble of not having it for this particular term. But there are some other scholarships that don't have deadlines, that can still be awarded to you based on, their entry period. They can pick a winner and still be able to provide you with funds for your upcoming fall term. Scholarships are a good amount of work. Looking for them, finding them, it's almost like a part-time job to go out there and look and search for different scholarships. But it's worth it if you win them. Yes, it's true, you're not going to win every single scholarship you apply for, but as long as you keep that up and start looking and applying, the better your chances are. If you don't apply at all, then you won't be eligible at all for any additional scholarships. So just something to keep in mind and something you can do right now. Something else you can do right now is to double check to make sure you completed all the steps you needed to complete with your financial aid. Even though you received that financial aid award letter, even though they've told you different things about how much aid you could be eligible for, there could still be steps that you need to complete before you're able to receive that financial aid before your term or when your school term starts. If you're selected for something that's known as FAFSA verification, log into your school portal, double check that you didn't miss any emails from your school, and see what they're asking you to verify in FAFSA verification. If there's a flag or a hold with that and you don't complete FAFSA verification timely, then they can delay your financial aid funds. And that could be a challenge, especially if you're counting on those funds to help you pay for some of your educational expenses that maybe you would have covered out of pocket if you don't get those in from financial aid. We know that some people use their financial aid to pay for off-campus housing and that sort of thing. So you want to make sure you don't have any reason why there could be a delay for your financial aid. So make sure that you've completed all the steps you need to complete. Something else, if you're a first-time borrower of federal student loans, there's actually a process known as entrance counseling. If you haven't heard of this or you're unaware of it or you heard a little bit about it, entrance counseling is required if you're borrowing loans for the very first time. If you haven't completed this, once again, there could be a hold on you receiving your federal student loan. So make sure you get that done as soon as possible. A lot of schools have ways for you to complete verification online. Entrance counseling online. So look to see what you have to do and what steps you need to take to get that done. If your school has reached out to you in any way saying they have conflicting information or something else that they need to resolve with your financial aid application, please do not ignore that. Please do not put that off until later. It's best that you address it as soon as possible. It could be a really simple fix or a really simple task you need to do in order to get that cleared up and make sure that there are no delays with your financial aid. Also, if you're looking at state financial aid, so you completed the FAFSA, a lot of states use the FAFSA information in order to award state grants and scholarships, but some programs may require a separate application. So I would recommend, and I'll put a link. I use this link a lot. We send it out, I think, almost every live, and I think even at the virtual college fair from Tribune Publishing, we even shared this link there as well, that some states could require an additional application for specific grants and scholarships. If you go to the state's Department of Education website for your particular state, and you get there and it says that no additional applications are needed beyond the FAFSA, then you can be rest assured that that's all you needed to do as far as those state scholarships and grants. But you'll be very relieved if you do get there and you notice there is an additional application for a grant that you think you're eligible for, and that you get that submitted so you can use those funds to help you pay for college. So I know, once again, I'm going on a little bit about different tips that I have for everybody. So like I said, I'm keeping an eye on the chat. Feel free to submit questions through. I'm keeping an eye there because this session really is for everyone who's joining us today, to be able to answer questions that you may have about paying for school. If it's concerns about something you don't understand in the process or something that you feel hung up on, feel free to put in the chat. We're more than happy to answer those questions for you. All right, so we've gone over like the different applications and anything that could potentially hold up some of your financial aid. And we've also gone over some of those scholarship opportunities that could be out there for you, that could still help you pay for fall. One important thing that I forgot to mention with the scholarships is, you could, even if you have enough for this upcoming term, even if you are looking at certain scholarships that maybe are more lucrative, that's got a larger award amount, maybe if you don't use them for this term, maybe it's something you can use for your next term or your next year. So it doesn't hurt to keep up with looking for those scholarships. There's a lot of different private organizations out there that offer scholarships. We actually offer a sweepstakes-based scholarship. There's no essay. It's a pretty simple way to sign up and enter yourself in either our $10,000 quarterly scholarship. We also offer several $1,000 per month scholarships on scholarshippoints.com. So that's just one of those pretty simple scholarships that you can just sign up for, log in, and try to be entered in the sweepstakes to win one of those. So that's one that doesn't take too much effort. There are definitely other scholarships out there that may require essays. They may require an interview, that sort of thing. But it's all worth it. Putting your name in that pool to try to win some scholarship money to help you pay for school is always helpful. Every dollar that you don't need to borrow is fantastic, because we know when you have student loans and that sort of thing, you're not repaying student loans one for one. It's $1 to every $1 you're paying one plus any interest that's accrued on that particular loan. So always important to kind of keep that in mind. And it's always important to look for those scholarships, even if there's some that aren't, like I said, for this year. They could be great for an upcoming term or next year. And let's just double checking here with my questions. And then, if you've done the work, you've applied for the scholarships, you keep doing that, you've done everything you can with all the financial aid applications, you submitted them all, you've been awarded the financial aid that you're going to be eligible for, you've had your conversations with the financial aid office, maybe they were able to offer a little bit more aid, maybe they weren't. Some of those decisions are at the discretion of your school. Well, then now it's time to look at different student loan options that you may have. You might notice on your financial aid award letter, especially if you completed the FAFSA, that there could be federal student loans already on there. If you see anything that's considered a federal plus loan, if you're an undergraduate student, that would be a parent plus loan. If you're a graduate student, that would be a plus loan for graduate students and professional students. Keep in mind that there's an additional application for the plus loan. And other things you can consider or maybe compare to that plus loan are things like private student loans. Private student loans can be used to help you pay for school. It can help you cover some of those financial aid gaps that you have. If you're an undergraduate student, or you don't have too much of a work history yet, or you not too much of that established credit yet, you may be required to use a parent or another trusted adult as a cosigner. But they can be used to help you cover some of those financial aid gaps that you have. Parents out there, parents that are helping their children pay for school, that's great. I'm sure they really appreciate that to help them through. If you need to borrow some student loans, there are also some private parent student loans options there are some private parent student loan options to help you help your child pay for school. So all things to definitely consider in there. And let's see, it's a little quiet today, but that's okay. We try to have these lives for everybody to ask their questions. We get a lot of great feedback on them, and even after the fact. So I love doing these lives and being able to interact. Great questions come in through Facebook all the time, Ask the Edvisor, all through our different chat and direct message features. I know right now at the bottom of the screen, we do have our Scholarship Points Instagram pinned. We aren't going live on Instagram, so we just wanted to make sure you guys know about it. We post a lot of great resources there. Scholarshippoints.com, the program we touched on a little bit during this live, is also linked in the tree there. So you can, right from there, you can get the link and create an account and enter some of our scholarship opportunities we offer through scholarshippoints.com. So feel free to take a look and join and follow us on Instagram if you don't already. And make sure to follow us on Edvisor's Facebook as well as Edvisor's YouTube, because we're always looking to put out helpful content to get you through the process, explaining some of those explaining in video, talking to you, some of those common questions you may have, like the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized loans. What is a private student loan? How does it work? How is it different from a federal student loan? We go through that, as well as walking through the FAFSA and hitting some of those hard questions and hard topics in the FAFSA application there. So we have a lot of great content on YouTube as well, and we're always putting out more. So I would recommend, and I would ask you guys to subscribe if you haven't yet. And I'm going to leave you guys with one more tip. Still keeping an eye on the questions in the chat. If anything comes in, I'll be more than happy to answer. But this is, I think, one part that a lot of people don't touch on when they talk about preparing for school. It's making that decision if you're going to have to work part-time while you're enrolled in classes. That's actually in my intro for those of you who weren't there when I introduced myself, I let everyone know that I actually worked throughout school part-time to help me cover some of my everyday college costs and also help me cover some of my tuition costs and different fees I owed the school directly. So working part-time, it is an option out there. Obviously, you want to make sure you have balance there. You want to make sure you're able to keep up with your schoolwork and keep up with the requirements of your job. Sometimes it's best to work on campus or off campus. It's sometimes better to work on campus with employers from your area and that sort of thing, because they might already employ a lot of college students. So they might be able to work with you and know that they have to, schedule you in a great way that works with your school schedule. So I did see a question pop up. Thank you for joining us, Lisa. Any tips for students 9th through 11th grade to prepare? Yes. Actually, Lisa, this is a great time for students, even younger students, to start looking for scholarship opportunities and also getting an idea of, starting those conversations at home, expectations between students and parents on how you're going to pay for school, what's considered affordable, especially as you're getting closer to starting to apply to school, is a great conversation to start as early as possible. I know we were talking a little bit about having those conversations as you're getting ready for your fall term, but if you are still a few years away, this is a great time to get an idea and set some expectations. If you know mom and dad can only afford a certain amount and you have an idea of how much the school where you want to go will cost, then you can come up with methods to help you through that now. If you're old enough to start working a part-time job in high school, then this could be a time where you can start saving towards your college costs in the future. The more time you have prepared and the more time you have to save will definitely help you through. Setting some savings goals is always fantastic. If you say something, especially if you're receiving birthday gifts, holiday gifts, anything, you can choose to put aside a certain percentage or the whole thing if you're able to do that. Saying, 50% of all my cash gifts from my birthdays, from holidays, I'll put aside for my college costs. If you are earning money, babysitting, working a part-time job, dog walking, anything at all, you can also set aside some saving goals now to put some money aside to help you pay for college. Beyond just tuition and fees, there are everyday costs and hidden costs with college. Everyday living type of things and needing some cash to help you get through the days and the weeks, even when it comes to laundry, transportation, other things that may not be considered or taken into account there. You can also start saving. So even if you aren't able to save enough for a huge dent in your tuition and other things, you could start saving some money so you'll have it for what you will need while you're attending college, especially if you're going away from home, living on campus, that sort of thing. We all know everyday costs are there. They may not be as apparent if you're living at home with mom and dad, but once you live on your own, you start to see the cost there. If there's any additional utilities that you need to cover, maybe if you're living off campus and that sort of thing. So it's always a good idea, especially if you're younger, to start saving some of that money and then have those conversations with mom and dad now, because the sooner you understand expectations of what you can expect and how your parents will be able to help you pay for school, or if they have any plans already set up for you, like a college savings plan, then it'll help you get an understanding of what your family can afford when you get there. And scholarships. There are scholarships that are available for high school students, starting freshman year and above. There might be some age requirements on some scholarships. So if you're a little bit on the younger end, just read the terms and conditions there and see if there's any specific age requirements there. And also, if you are winning scholarships for school and it's not at a time where you're going to be going to school, it's going to take a few years, find a way to make sure that money is either held with you with the private organization if they hold on and wait for you to enter college, or if they would like you to maybe put it in a free college savings plan or something like that. Start getting some of those things set up now. But that's a fantastic question. There's definitely things you can do from 9th through 11th grade to start preparing for college. You don't need to wait until the last minute. The more time you have, the easier it is to come up with a plan, get an idea of what you can expect for help. As far as completing those financial aid applications like the FAFSA, the CSS profile, you do basically have to wait until about that senior year of high school before you're going to school. So some of those financial aid applications you can't get an early jump start with. There's even been talks about major changes to the FAFSA in 2023. So you can get an idea and get an idea of how the FAFSA works and what you'll need, but you won't be able to actually apply until you're closer to that senior year of high school. But fantastic question, Lisa. Great question. I'm going to keep my eye on the chat to see if any other questions are coming through. I know we were talking a little bit about working and getting ready to work if you're planning on working part-time during college. If you see, one thing you might see in your financial aid award letter is something called work study. Work study could be federal. There could be some work study type of financial aid awards from your school as well. Essentially, that means that you have the ability to earn your financial aid by working while you're basically in school. There are some ways you can do it during summer term and that sort of thing. Many work study jobs are on campus, but there could be a few that are off campus. If you have been awarded work study and that's something you are interested in and you definitely want to take advantage of, I would recommend that you try to get some more information. There could be some competition for different work study jobs out there. I know at my school, when I this was years ago when not everything was as automated, but there was essentially a pamphlet where you could go through and see the different job opportunities, and it tells you how to apply there. Chances are some of that's going to be in your portal or offered to you from financial aid. But you want to flag some of those jobs for work study that you want to work at, see when you need to apply, what you need to provide, different criteria there so you can get a jump start of getting an idea of your work study job. Things with work study is, there are minimum requirements on how much you are paid, but for the most part, each job could have different payment amounts. And generally, you can work to earn up to the amount you've been awarded on your financial aid letter. If you're seeing work study on your financial aid award letter, that money does need to be earned from working like a paycheck. Most likely is how you will see that. It's not money that's given to you right up front when you start your term. It is something you have to earn. If you don't have work study or you're not looking to take a work study job and you're thinking, I'll get a part-time job off campus at maybe a coffee shop, a bookstore, maybe the job you have at home has a location close to your school. You want to start getting an idea of those different job opportunities now. Like I said, if you think work study is competitive, well, getting some jobs, especially if you're in a place that's not maybe a major city or has a lot of different type of employment opportunities around you, there might be some heavy competition there. So maybe reach out now. Start getting a list together of the places you could work. Let them know you're starting school in the fall and you definitely want to work part-time. Is there anything I need to do? If you're transferring, this is actually something I did for one of my terms when I first got to school, is I actually worked at a local pharmacy in my hometown, and I wanted to work at the local pharmacy, which was near my college campus. I made sure to let my supervisor and my employer know my plans and see if we could work a way to transfer and that sort of thing. And that was extremely helpful. But in all honesty, because I had that transfer, it was easy for me. I had friends who wanted to work there with me. And because it was more of a college town, college area, the jobs got taken very quickly. So if you're planning to work part-time while you're in school, because that's something you want to do or you think will be helpful, start getting an idea of what you're going to do and how you're going to apply for it. And if it's work study, start that process with financial aid to ask about the different work study job opportunities you have and when you can apply. They may not have the full pamphlet together now in April, but they could have one any month now as we're getting closer to that fall term. Well, thank you everyone for joining today. Thank you, Lisa, for your great and fantastic question. We will be coming back live in probably a few weeks because we definitely want to make sure that we're here to answer questions that you have. Like I said, my name's Elaine Rubin. What's my name? My name's Elaine Rubin. I'm the Director of Corporate Communications here at Edvisors. You can follow us on Edvisor's Facebook, Edvisor's YouTube, and below I'm showing the Instagram link to our scholarship points Instagram handle there. And be sure to check out edvisors.com. If you have questions, feel free to put them on this chat or go to edvisors.com, scroll down to the bottom and ask a question through Ask the Edvisor. Thank you everyone for joining today. It was a great session.